What's going on, wrestling fans? It is Friday, September 3rd, 2021, and you are currently tuned into the Five Starr Wrestling Report podcast. We got two shows each week that we produce here on the FSWR channel. Got the Monday edition, where we cover AEW Rampage and NWA Power from the preceding week. And on the Friday edition, we cover NXT and AEW Dynamite. If it is your first time checking out the show, I appreciate it. Hopefully you like what you hear and decide you want to come back and check out more future content here. If you do, make sure you take the time to subscribe and click the bell icon to stay notified of all future uploads. Again, that is Monday and Friday that we have shows on this channel. Drops usually go somewhere early to mid-afternoon. Been pretty consistent with the upload schedule. In addition, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and most importantly, comment down below. Whatever is on your mind, whether it's WWE, NXT, AEW, NWA, whatever, I don't care. Just comment down below. Share whatever's on your mind. Also, in addition to the weekly podcast, you can also check out my article content that I post on the Chairshot website each week. I post 4 articles a week, most opinion-based. Topics range on any subject from WWE to NXT to AEW to whatever's relevant on the market at the moment. I will always make sure to link my most recent publication in the comment section with the podcast uploads. Again, that is 4 uploads every week. You go to the Chairshot website, go under the opinion tab, and usually you'll see my postings pretty much at the top of the list immediately. I definitely would appreciate your support there as well. All the support I can get. So, before we get into the shows this week, I did want to take a moment to cover the recent tragic passing of Daffney Unger. Many of the major publishing articles had covered this story already, and in fact, my dad had actually sent me a text about it while I was at work the other night. So I kind of speculated this had reached some mainstream articles in some capacity, which probably meant that there was more to the story that met the eye. And if you want to read more into the article, you can find several sources detailing the particulars of everything. What I will say about Daphne is that I had seen a lot of her work in WCW, and at the time I think it was like 5 or 6 years old, so my memories of her are fairly vague from her time with WCW. I remember she was part of a lot of wacky angles with David Flair and Crowbar, and I mean, to be frank, WCW was in complete shambles at the time anyway, so, even if her work there was generally perceived as bad, she wasn't the exception to any of that by any stretch. I do, however, remember some of her work in TNA years later, specifically a match that I still cannot believe I remember to this day, but I remember it because it was like one of the first times I had ever seen a wrestling company do extreme style hardcore wrestling with women before, where they actually kind of pushed it a little too borderline. WWE had done stuff on Raw in the early 2000s with women in hardcore matches, but never the kind of stuff that I saw Daphne do in TNA. And I don't remember what pay-per-view it was, but I think the match involved her, Abyss, Raven, and some other girl. It might have been Taylor Wilde, if y'all remember her. It was some kind of mixed tag match. And yeah, I remember seeing Daphne take those absolutely brutal bumps. She's getting dropped through tables, getting slammed into tacks. She would get thrown around by the men at certain points. She was doing all these dangerous dives and landing on her head and neck. And, I'd hear reports and I'd read about most of the insiders talking about Daphne's concussion issues and ongoing injuries. And, I was fairly concerned for her back then. And, I don't even remember what year she was with TNA, but it's had to have been at least over a decade by this point. And, it's just one of those things where you hear about so many wrestlers who have dealt with multiple concussions and head injuries, and when they start to age, when they retire, you start to hear about their health issues and mental decline, and things really just escalate pretty drastically. It's a damn tragedy. But there have already been numerous reports about this, so I don't really want to sit here and regurgitate what everyone else is saying, but I think it is important to reiterate this too before we move on here. As someone who has battled some form of depression over the last couple years, and I'm still trying to work through all of it day in and day out, the most important thing to know is that whether or not you see the value in yourself as a human, it is important to understand that you do have value. It may not be apparent in the moment of real struggle, but I do believe that everyone has a light inside of them. As a being of this planet, you do have inherent value, and you have a purpose to serve in this world. And if you're willing to fight every day to achieve whatever purpose it is and serve whoever or whatever it is you're passionate about, I can assure you that light won't fade. I don't know if there are any religious people out there, but one book that really gave me a lot of perspective into harsh reality is a book by Billy Graham called Peace with God. There's a lot about scripture, a lot about biblical discussion, a lot of Christian theology, but the book is very practical, and it provides what I believe is a concrete thesis that the pathway to happiness in this world is through surrender to whatever your definition of the ultimate being is. Whether that's a spiritual God, whether that's something that takes form of a God, something conscious, something unconscious, something that you perceive as a higher power. There is a plan for you. It won't be easy to find the path. It's probably not as straightforward as it seems, but everyone does have a path and a direction. And if you have the will and the courage and the patience to see it through, your superior being will ensure your success. So, life is very difficult, and it does not get any easier with time. But, if you're willing to stick it out and you're willing to put forth the effort, positive things do come out of it. So, my recommendation, if you're struggling with issues and, you feel self-doubt, feel worthlessness as a human being, just, there are people to talk to. And, whether that's hotlines, whether that's counseling, friends, family, whatever the case is, just understand that there are people out there that will listen. There are strangers out there that will listen. I wouldn't put my stock in my faith in complete strangers to help me through my problems per se, but people will listen. So, and from Christian theology, let's talk about some shitty wrestling programs. The show can only go downhill from here. So, before we get into the actual details of the show, yes, I saw the new NXT logo. And while it looks like they sent Matt Riddle to one of those puff and paint sessions after lighting up a joint, it's a logo, people. I wouldn't be that outraged about it. That's all I have to say about it. Mandy Rose versus Sarai in the opener. Well, I will say this. Their booking of Sarai has sucked a cock, but her music still slaps. The match was mostly inoffensive. Nothing visually ugly or anything. Even though Sarai looked like she almost killed poor Mandy with that fisherman suplex. And for those of you that missed last week's show, or give a crap either way, Tampon Girl and the other girl are aligned with Mandy now. Why? Well, if you recall, Mandy just kind of showed up and told them to join her last week, and they were like, okay. And no, I'm not exaggerating with that. And in the lamest finish imaginable, Sarai ends up hitting Mandy with that running dropkick into the ropes. Mandy tumbles to the outside, and her lackeys immediately grab a towel, and all three of them hightail it out. So Sarai wins by countout. And I presume Mandy shows up with a face shield next time we see her. Remember what I said about the booking of Sarai being sucky? Duke Hudson versus Kyle O'Reilly. I actually don't have a whole lot to say about this. It was perfectly fine. O'Reilly came in selling the injured ribs. Duke worked over the body part for a good chunk of the match. He actually worked as a good bully heel. O'Reilly was a good babyface in peril. Yeah, no complaints. I know I kind of scoffed at the setup to this last week, but it was like a one-and-done blow-off kind of match with O'Reilly going over clean. I couldn't really find any fault with it. I still trying to figure out a name, but Duke Hudson just reminds me of someone. He's got like one of those familiar faces. No, it's not Brendan Vink. Maybe the name will come to me throughout the week, but yeah, he's got like one of those faces where I just can't pin down who he reminds me of, but it's like one of those tip of the tongue kind of things. Like I said, though, no faults here. Harmless enough match. I can, however, find fault with this Indy Hartwell-Dexter Loomis wedding debacle that's about to transpire, but we'll wait for that to go down before I share my elaborate insight. Like, come on, seriously, like, what's a swerve? We all find out that Indy was in love with Johnny the whole time. That actually would be pretty fucking hilarious. So then we had Ilya Dragunov come out for a promo, still selling the match he had with Walter at TakeOver. And he basically recapped his match at the pay-per-view, talked about how he's ready for whatever challenges await him in the UK. And that was all. Kept it straight and easy to the point. Dragunov came in, said his piece, bid a farewell, and now he claims to be the new star of the UK. No sneak attack, no setup, nothing. So I presume Dragunov's done for now, which sucks because he's been one of the few highlights on this program in recent memory. I do kind of hope this means we'll get Walter transferring over to the regular NXT show, but God only knows what they're going to do with this new formatting deal, which apparently Vince and Bruce are going to be overseeing. I'm wetting myself with excitement at the thought of it. We had a sit-down interview with Kaylee Ray, and by God, she's got to have one of the thickest Scottish accents I've ever heard. Anyway, she talked about stuff, something about thriving at the biggest moments, something about letting the world know that she's here. And she basically ran down every single person on the roster, every single girl, that is. Anyway, they set up a match with her and Ember Moon for next week on the program, so cool. Give her something to do. Imperium squashed Drake Maverick and some dude named Grayson Waller. I guess the story is that because Killian Dane is gone, Drake needs a new tag partner. Where he found this Grayson Waller fella, I could not tell you, but perhaps he could have scouted for better partners. I'll keep my fingers crossed things work out for him. We had more stupid comedy with the go away. Indy wants Gargano to give Dexter a chance. Gargano wants Dexter to be normal. I want this faction to disappear and never return. Kind of like Austin Theory. What the hell happened to him? Did he get swallowed by the vortex of assholery that is this Index story? I couldn't tell you. Oh, Christ. They have fucking Pete Dunne's group cut a promo. Shit, my fucking hell. Pretty soon Dom might be able to then have fucking Kane as a sentence. Because he ends everything in a fucking question. Fuck. Shit. Tampon Girl and the Other Girl jumped Sarai in a segment that Vic Joseph sold in about as milquetoast a manner as possible. Almost like NPR was covering this skit. Or me, for that matter. Johnny Gargano versus LA Knight. Okay, seriously, I have a question. What the hell is Johnny Gargano at this point? Is he a face or a heel? I feel like ever since this guy started feuding with Karrion Kross, I've completely been unable to discern what his character is. I'm like 99% sure that every person he's wrestled in the last month plus has been a heel, but maybe I'm wrong. Whatever. So, basically, to sum up this match in short order, this was a good wrestling TV match that was severely hindered by the absurdity that is everything involving Dexter and Indy. I don't even know what to say at this point. Like, I guess in a bizarre sense, I have to give Indy and Dexter credit because even if they know how completely over the top this whole story is, they are doing their best to make the most of it, particularly Indy. So I'll give them my props for making the most of it, but Jesus Christ, I don't even know how to begin breaking down this whole Index thing. You know, if hypothetically speaking, say a UFO were to have warped down before the match and sucked Indy and Dexter into a vortex away from ringside, and, you know, they just let Gargano and Knight wrestle a singles match without shenanigans, maybe this segment would have been all right. I don't know. Knight ended up going over after Loomis tried to use the Force on Johnny. Not kidding. Jessie Kamea versus Raquel Gonzalez was not good, but it was short. They are going with Raquel and Frankie for the title, so hey, I'll finally get to see a Frankie Monet match again. Like I said last week, I know people raved about how awesome Frankie was in Impact. I mean, it's probably because of how they featured her in NXT thus far, but I'm not seeing what everyone else sees in her. I mean, I guess in a sense she's got a form of charisma, but I don't know. It also might be the distraction of seeing Robert Stone and whatever that fucking getup he's in every week. By God, they should just go all the way with him and make him the gay hairdresser for the crew at this point. It's not like he's ever going to be taken seriously as a worker anyway. They had a sit-down deal with Wade Barrett and Samoa Joe. Basically, the whole premise was that he's been traveling and scouting the talent, and he's welcoming any and all challengers. It was fine. Although this was the second week in a row where the new NXT champion was a complete afterthought in the grand scheme of things on this program. Really don't like that. We had Roderick Strong versus Ikeman Gyro. Oh my God, Roderick Strong. This poor bastard. I mean, I love watching Strong wrestle as much as the next dude, but like, what the hell are they even doing with him at this point? I'm not implying anything, but I mean, ever since they broke up the Undisputed Era, Roddy just looks completely lost on this show. And this Diamond Mine thing, dude, I don't even know what to say. And, like, never mind the fact that this group's been together for weeks now, and I still have no idea who that Japanese dude is. And no, I'm not going to look it up. They can fucking tell me who it is on the program. It's not that hard. But, like, I said this before. If this were real, would you believe in any capacity that Roderick Strong would be hanging out with Malcolm Bivens and any of the people in this crew in his free time? That he would actually be training with these guys at a dojo? I don't know. Strong won with a suplex into that double knee backbreaker combo. I presume he's beating Kushida for the Cruiserweight title whenever they decide to do that match. But they need to do something with Roddy, because whatever it is they're doing with him now, it ain't working. I mean, the dude's got stubble now. And we usually know what that means when dudes start growing out grungy facial hair. Never ends well. They did a hype promo for Casey Catanzaro and Kaden Carter's match with Zoe Stark and Io Shirai next week. And they're doing all their scripted verbiage. It's completely polar opposite of how you would expect human beings to interact on any level. And, of course, Io's line in all of this is to stop the conversation by pointing her finger at Casey and Kaden and saying, I don't like you, and I don't like you. Which I'll admit, I did laugh at this. Fucking love Io. How has WWE not made an Io Shirai t-shirt that just reads, I don't like you? I mean, they're crazy to think that shit wouldn't sell on WWE shop. Especially with all the introverts working day jobs that need a way to tell customers to piss off. I'd wear it. Cameron Grimes did some wacky comedy with the two GYD buffoons. You know, the ones that are always soon to be recognized as tag champions, but they never are because they suck. Anyway, I guess Grimes is going to be doing a tag feud with these two, so guess we'll see who he comes up with for a partner. Maybe he can give Drake Maverick a call. And the main event was Tommaso Ciampa versus Ridge Holland. I mean, overall it was a solid match, but you know, by this point in the show I was kind of burnt out, if I'm being honest. I guess I was kind of surprised to see Ciampa go over clean, especially when it seems like they're pretty high on Ridge right now. I'm not really sure why they're jobbing him out clean, you know, when they're pushing him so hard, but whatever. I said last week that it seems like they're kind of building up to some kind of War Games deal, but I guess I'm just not sold on the Pete Dunne group, you know, which makes it kind of hard to get behind them as a heel faction to begin with. And B, I don't really like how they're building up the face team. They've done this kind of booking before where, you know, it feels like they're scrambling to throw a bunch of guys together, just having them brawl every single week to build up a big War Games tag match, but you know, it always feels so forced and hastily put together. You never really get a good explanation for why the teams are fighting or why they're mad at each other or why you should care. And, I mean, I don't even know if that's what they're building up towards, if I'm being frank. I mean, right now there hasn't been any announcement of an upcoming War Games show. I mean, I guess it'll come in due time, but, you know, for all we know, they could just be building this all up to blow it off in some kind of random main event tag match. You know, but if the whole thing is just leading to MSK, Thatcher, and Ciampa against Dunn, Lorcan, Birch, and Holland, it just, it screams undercard to me. It doesn't have a main event feel to it. You know, like, it's one thing when they used to have the Undisputed Era do these War Games matches because, you know, they had spent so much time building them up as a main event faction. They'd been featured for so long. You know, by the point that they were putting them in those War Games matches, most, if not all of them, had championships in the faction. So, you know, it actually kind of felt like they were a big deal, but I don't know. It's awkward and can't really get into it. So I guess we'll see what they do. I mean, like I said, they're completely reformatting everything in the next couple weeks after these tapings. So, considering Bruce and Vince are going to be overseeing things, who knows? They might just take one look at this and drop it all together. So, all that buildup might have just been all for nothing. You can see what I'm looking forward to on this show in the next several months. Another weird show overall, though. There's some good wrestling on the card, but I mean, my God, some of these feuds, I don't even know. I guess we have the Index wedding to look forward to. Yippee skippy. And that brought us to AEW Dynamite the following evening for September 1st, 2021. FTR versus Santana and Ortiz. Dax and Cash sporting the Bobby Eaton-inspired trunks. Nice touch. This is a very strange match. I've got to presume that Cash is still hurting right now, because if you actually watch the match in its entirety, Cash barely got involved at all. And I have no idea what was going on toward the end of the match. Dax and Santana are in one corner. They're teasing a superplex for what feels like an eternity. And meanwhile, Cash is at the other corner with Ortiz. And I don't know if he just forgot what he was supposed to do or if he just got cold feet. But, I mean, he kept looking around. He stood on the turnbuckle forever. It just... yeah, I don't know what was going on there. And the action wasn't bad, but it definitely felt like they were compensating for something here. Santana and Ortiz ended up going over clean, and to be honest, it is what it is. I sort of went back and forth on whether or not I thought this match should have happened at the pay-per-view or happened on Dynamite. Maybe there was a part of me hoping they would book it for All Out, but, you know, given the circumstances and how they played the match out, I don't know. I'm kind of glad they put it on TV because it really wasn't pay-per-view quality. But, yeah, weird match. I did hear Excalibur use the term Latin X at one point in this match, which, according to studies, statistically represents, I think, like 3% of the actual population. But, hey, gotta stay politically correct, I guess. So then we had CM Punk come out for a promo. He took some time to hype up his match with Darby, talked a little about the possibilities of it being his last time stepping in the ring, given the fact that he hasn't wrestled in 7 years. Kind of a lame promo, if I'm being blunt. And, you know, I know it's only been 2 weeks, but I really have not been all that impressed with Punk's promos or, honestly, any of his work following that return promo on Rampage. He ended up getting jumped by 2.0 and Daniel Garcia, which eventually led to Darby and Sting running out for the save. Well, more accurately, Darby jogged out and Sting casually speedwalked with a question mark at the end there. And then Sting cut a really bizarre promo where I think the idea was that we're supposed to assume he's turning on Darby at the pay-per-view. I mean, that's what I gathered. I mean, he essentially said that he's going to let Darby and Punk do their thing and he's not going to be ringside during the match. Maybe that's just a plot line for something down the road, because I think the presumption with most people is that at some point Sting is going to turn on Darby in some way. I really don't see the point, but then again, I don't really see the point with half the stuff AEW does. It's a minor nitpick here too. I did think they missed a golden opportunity to build up the GTS again. I remember WWE did that with Kenta years back, where, you know, one of the big storylines was, when is Kenta going to hit the GTS? And, you know, they spent like months and months building it up, and fans actually kind of got behind it at one point. I thought they could have saved this for a bigger moment, you know, maybe using it to beat Darby at All Out, or just saving it for something bigger down the pike. Yeah, just, I don't know, missed opportunity there. MJF had a sit-down with Tony Schiavone to hype up his match with Jericho on Sunday. I actually thought this was a good segment, if not mainly for Tony being his usual funny self. But, MJF basically ran down Jericho and made his case for why he's going to end Jericho's career. Meanwhile, Tony couldn't get a word in edgewise. Good stuff, though. Orange Cassidy beat Jack Evans, and that's about all I have to say about that. They had an Eddie Kingston Miro hype package, and this was really good, too. Eddie's a great promo. I forgot how good he was on the stick. And, it's incredible to me just how much they've wasted him with pretty much everything he's done since he debuted with the company. Whatever in the hell that tag team was with Jon Moxley that went nowhere. Just a complete waste of his tools. Miro had a great line in here, too, where he goes, the only thing I stay down for is my wife in bed after a successful title defense. And, yeah, it's becoming more evident that we'll probably see Lana sooner or later on the show. Hey, as long as she doesn't wrestle, I don't care. Like I said before, even though the build-up for this hasn't been particularly great, I am still looking forward to this match at the pay-per-view. Up next, we had the JR Chris Jericho in-ring interview, and whole idea here was for JR to get his rationale for why Jericho is putting his career on the line, and Jericho's reasoning pretty much boils down to the fact that MJF has 3 victories over him. He has a lot in common with MJF, and he knows he can beat him. Pretty bland explanation, if I'm being frank, but hey, I complained about them not providing a good explanation last week for Jericho putting his career at stake when he didn't have to, and here they gave me an explanation, so fine, whatever. It was a good promo. If I had any emotional attachment to seeing Jericho's in-ring career continue, I would probably be more invested in this match, but to be honest, I'm really ambivalent either way. Regardless of what happens, it's a lose-lose for me, because even if Jericho loses and he walks away from in-ring competition, I'll probably have to hear his goddamn commentary on Rampage every week, so either way, I don't benefit from it. Powerhouse Hobbs versus Brian Cage. This wasn't boring. I just found myself yawning in complete disinterest for about 95% of it. Yeah, I'm just ribbing. This match was pretty fucking boring. I said on my Rampage recap last week, I really could care less about this Team Taz storyline. The most talented wrestler in this faction, if you even want to call it that at this point, is Ricky Starks, and they've done practically jack squat with that guy. And Brian Cage, bro. I've watched plenty of Cage's work before, especially in Impact a few years ago. Has he always been this dull? I guess it just goes to show how terrible things are with Impact Wrestling, where, at one point I would probably consider Brian Cage one of the highlights of that program. But, yeah, dude, he's not really done a great job in AEW. He's a decent worker, but, personality-wise, character-wise, just, I don't know. They've just made him a generic meathead. Whatever. We had some stupid shit with Big Show, QT Marshall, and the Gun Club. Long story short, QT called out Big Show to fight. Big Show killed the factory members. The Gun Club came down. Billy Gunn then proceeds to throttle White in the hip. Yes, a Billy Gunn heel turn in 2021. Some fucking riveting television right there. And, yep, that's about all I care to write about it. Horrible. Penelope Ford wrestled Ty Conti. Ass. Speaking of ass, my favorite female wrestler in the business today, Thunder Rosa, gets beat up backstage like a dweeb by Jade Cargill and Nyla Rose, I think. Really, I was only kind of half paying attention. Yeah, go figure. Genius booker Tony Khan. Can't put a talented wrestler like Thunder Rosa in a TV match, but we can let Penelope Ford and Ty Conti stink up the joint for 10 plus minutes. Hey, who knows? Maybe Rosa will win the Battle Royal on Sunday. I know, I'm giving him too much credit. By the way, it should be noted, as horrific as that Penelope Ford Ty Conti match was, it still could not hold a candle to whatever in the hell you call that Charlotte Nia Jax match from Raw this past Monday. I mean, I joke about it being a monkey fucking a football on most occasion, but quite frankly, I've seen monkeys with more coordination than the crap I saw in that match. By the way, shameless plug here, but I did write an extended article on that particular match, and I'll make sure I leave the link in the description if you want to check out that on the Chairshot website. Feel free to read it. In the main event was the Jurassic Express and the Lucha Bros versus the Buckfuck Buddies and the Cue Ball Goons. Whoops, I mean Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson. What's honestly been said about AEW tag matches that I already haven't said? Most of it was just wild charade of moves, lots of wild action, lots of moments where guys were frantically doing spots around the ring and the ref does nothing to enforce any form of coherent rules. The finish was a bit surprising. Didn't expect to see Phoenix eat the pin. It's kind of why I figured the Bald Eagle buffoons were in there. But no, heels went over, and then they did the big post-match afterbirth to close out the show with all the heels gaining the momentum going into the pay-per-view, which is ideally what you would want on the go-home show. Kenny Omega was insufferable on the stick throughout this whole exchange, so I ended up muting the last 5 or so minutes of the show. But they lowered the cage from the ceiling. They had a bunch of faces try to scale the cage to make the save for Christian, who they handcuffed and beat down in the middle of the ring. The heat angle was fine. It does leave the tag title match on a good cliffhanger, too. I don't expect Kenny to drop the AEW World title to Christian, but considering the Bucks went over the Lucha Bros in this 8-man, I'm kind of thinking more and more that the Lucha Bros are winning the straps on Sunday. And, like I had mentioned previously, that it would kind of tie in with what they're doing with the Andrade Pac match, which I guess is now happening on television at some point because of travel issues with Pac right now. And that royally sucks because that probably means that they're going to bump the Women's Casino Battle Royal onto the main card, which, not fond of that deal. Anyway, I gotta be honest, not a fan of this one. To be frank, the best hype they did for the All Out was the stuff they did with MJF and Jericho. And that's one of the matches at the pay-per-view I'm least looking forward to. Generally, though, I don't think the show did a real good job selling me on the pay-per-view. It was better than last week's show in many aspects, but, I just wasn't a huge fan of it. And I know that'll be counterculture to what everyone else says because everyone's still in the honeymoon phase when it comes to AEW. It's borderline impossible to convince those people to see anything otherwise. But that's why I'm blunt and straight to the point with all my opinions. I just wish there were more and more people that didn't view this show through rose-colored glasses like most people do. It's not to say that there weren't things I didn't enjoy about the show. Christ, I just listed them off in the report, but as a whole, I generally think we should have higher expectations for wrestling companies when they're doing go-home shows. The whole point is to hard sell your pay-per-view. Get people excited for the card. I watched this show, and when it was over, it just kind of felt like a standard, normal, everyday edition of Dynamite. With a little bit of storyline advancement, but definitely not the major sell that it needed to be. So there you go, everyone. That'll about wrap things up for this episode. If there's anything you want to elaborate on that I did not take the time on the show to do today, the fuck was that statement? Was that even coherent English? Let me try that again. If there's anything that I did not elaborate on that you would like to, feel free to leave those thoughts and exchanges down in the comments section. Once again, in addition, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment like I said. click the bell icon to stay posted for the 2 weekly uploads on the FSW channel. Make sure you check out my Chairshot content throughout the week if you're in the mood to read some opinion articles. And I will be back on Monday to talk about Rampage Power and the All Out pay-per-view. I know there's some other wrestling events upcoming this weekend. I think New Japan has a show that they're doing, and I'm just not going to have enough time to fit that into my schedule. I do plan to cover some New Japan content in the future. I'll probably cover a good chunk of the G1 when that comes out later this year, because, I mean, to be honest, that's usually the only thing that I really look forward to every year, in addition to the Wrestle Kingdom shows. I run hot and cold with New Japan. And I know with the whole pandemic thing, it's been a real struggle for that product to make any headway, but we'll see. You know, kickstarting things off. The G1 always does kind of, I don't know, revamp excitement for a lot of professional wrestling fans, so we'll see what they got with that. But I would like to ideally cover a little more New Japan content in the future, just to kind of branch off from the standard stuff I've been doing with AEW and WWE content. And with that all said, that'll do it for this episode. Peace out, all.